All right, guys, we are live. Welcome to the Baxter Riches podcast, 2,000 subscriber special. Thank you guys so much for having this and just building the legacy that we've had just in one short year. I'm Zach Ginn, your host. I quitted my minimum wage bag boy job to pursue the riches of real estate investing at the age of 17 and never looked back. I'm here to educate and inform entrepreneurs, young and old, how to become complete real estate investors by talking to the best and most influential minds of real estate. I am joined by one of the best Bags to Riches stories I've heard is Mr. Austin Zaback. Austin Zaback is one of the youngest millionaires in Arizona. He almost exclusively did it through real estate and successful sales and marketing. I'm so excited to bring him on today. Thanks so much for coming on, Austin.
I really appreciate you having me, Zach.
All right. So let's get started from the beginning. What is your Bags to Riches story?
I love it, man. How far back do you want me to go?
I guess you can go back to your garage and pool days into real estate.
Sure. Well, it's kind of a long story, so I'll try to keep it short. You know, when I was a young kid, I ended up kind of bouncing around, but primarily I lived with my grandparents in their garage, actually, here in Gilbert, Arizona. It was in Gilbert, Arizona, and I was born in Mesa, Arizona, moved to Gilbert, Arizona. Parents divorced, like I said, moved in with grandparents, and really, I got started in business at about 8 years old. My grandpa would show me how to clean swimming pools. And, it always intrigued me. I was always ahead of my age, but I got into the swimming pool cleaning business, I guess. And, I did that for probably 7 years or so. I did that till I was about 15 years old. And I made a lot of money for my age, not having to pay. It wasn't like, a lot of it was just cash deals. I wasn't paying, the IRS really. So hopefully they're not watching this. But, I was probably making 20, 30, some odd $1,000, 40 grand, maybe a year by the time I was, 12 years old, So, I blew all my money, didn't save anything. I bought every toy you could imagine, every paintball, airsoft gun, moped, go-kart, dirt bike, you name it. Right. And, but I was forced to mature fairly quickly just due to the fact that, and I didn't really have a ton of people telling me what to do necessarily. My grandparents are great, right? I love my grandparents to death. They're the best people on the face of the planet, but they had already raised kids. They weren't necessarily out in my garage every single day. I mean, as long as I went to school and passed, it didn't matter what I passed with, as long as I passed, right? If I got a D or a C or a D or whatever, as long as I got through it, that was really all that ever mattered. And so anyways, that's kind of my story there. And then, 15 years old, I got my first job at a dry cleaners, and I hated it. I hated being told what to do and when to show up and the whole nine. And so I worked there for probably 3 or 4 months, and I quit. And, that's kind of the next 3 years of my life. I'd work a job, I'd quit, I'd work a job, I'd quit. And, I probably worked, 15 plus jobs. I used to say the exact number when I get on a podcast, but to be honest with you, I lost track. I'd have to go back and really tally them all up and count them all. But got into network marketing, MLM, multi-level marketing, and did pretty well, but more importantly, I met a lot of great people. And I think that really is what catapulted me to getting into actual real estate when I was 18 years old, was the mindset that I achieved through network marketing, multi-level marketing, and the different people that I was, exposed to, and the people I was, had the opportunity to kind of rub shoulders with. And, that was really, really big in my life at that time. I was hanging around people that were making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a month, at 21, 22, 23, 25 years old, wearing Breitlings and iced out Rolexes. And I'd never seen anything like that before. Not in real life, at least. I understood that with my pool business, you could have time freedom, but I never understood financial abundance. I didn't realize that there was that much money in the world, right? I thought, well, I can make, 100 grand a year. I thought 100 grand a year was like out of this world. And it is, don't get me wrong. But I thought that it was like, if I could make 100 grand a year, I'm like big balling. And come to find out, these guys are doing that every week. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what happened there. And ultimately, that industry just wasn't for me after a couple of years, and I ended up getting into real estate.
Mm-hmm. And so unlike most people that get into real estate, they like to become a realtor. They see flashy realtors everywhere. I believe, did you get started with wholesaling as that really like brought you in?
I did, yeah. I got started with wholesaling at 18. Probably about 17 and a half, maybe going on 18. I was working my last and final job that I ever had about 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago now. And I was cleaning air conditioners, and I made good money. I really did. I made six figures for sure cleaning air conditioners. It was a sales job, a sales/labor. I mean, I would actually have to clean the air conditioner myself, but then I also got to, upsell different products while I was at the customer's home. And, but I worked my ass off, man. I was working, 6 or 7 days a week, every day, 12, 15 hours a day. I was working at 4:00 in the morning. I had to be at the shop. Before the sun came up, I'd prep my truck and, clean the vacuum cleaners. And I drove a big box truck around, and, we didn't get home till dark, So at that point in time in my life, I started seeing some different ads and stuff like that on my Facebook of how you could get into real estate with no money down. And I didn't understand what that meant. At the time, you got to remember this is really before like Instagram was really big. Instagram had just maybe like barely people were starting to use it, but it was really like Facebook, right? Like Facebook was really where people were. And so, I saw some ads, on how I could get into real estate with no money down. And it really did pique my interest. I hated what I was doing. I knew I was better than that because I had gone through so much in my life already that I knew that I was capable of so much more. And that's kind of what happened. I got it. So to answer your question, I got into wholesaling.
Wow. And so I think some really important things I need to understand about your foundation starting out, because it leads up to you becoming one of the youngest millionaires in Arizona, is just this work ethic. Like you've said previously on your YouTube channel, you guys should check him out, Austin Zaback on YouTube. But from a very young age, you were like the dude at the job that was there, first guy there, last one to leave, sweeping, everything like that. Like, how did you have that work ethic? Because trust me, at 14, 15, most kids don't have that.
My grandpa,
Okay.
Great question, by the way. My grandpa, he's, tell you what, my grandpa's, he's just one of the most unbelievable guys you ever meet, but he's 78 years old right now at the time of recording this. He's 78 and he still cleans pools every day of his life. So, he goes out there, he wakes up at 4:00 in the morning at 78 years old. He gets out, he gets in his truck, he goes and picks up his trailer from the storage yard, in Gilbert, and he's got probably 30 or 35 accounts that he cleans. He nets the pool, he sweeps the pool, he vacuums it, checks the chemicals, and does all the repairs necessary on the filter and the pump and everything like that. And so, I watched that, man. I lived with that every day of my life. I watched my grandpa and grandma get up and get out of bed and work, and for them, it was a lot of manual, physical labor stuff. And I just saw that. And I don't think anybody ever really told me, but I think I just picked up on it, man. I watched everybody in my life, work really, really hard. And I just put two and two together, I think, as a young kid, that, hey, if I wanted to, because when I was young, it was more about just buying toys and buying a bike or buying a paintball gun or an airsoft gun or a motorcycle, right? A dirt bike, a quad. I had every toy you could imagine, but but I knew that nobody else was going to buy it for me. And I knew that if I wanted the money to be able to do those things, I had to figure out how to work hard. Right. And so, since I was a little kid, and then when I got older, I think it just was more of like, dude, I'm competitive, right? I want to be the best. I don't want to go, no matter what. I remember working at like Buffalo Wild Wings or Texas Roadhouse or Venezia's, pizzeria. And, any job I ever had, I just wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the fastest cook that there was. I wanted to be able to throw the pizza dough up in the air and catch it on my finger, and that's just always what kind of drove and inspired me to do what I did.
Yeah. I think a lot of people watching this, I got people that are making six, 7 figures watching this podcast. And I got a lot of young kids that are 20, 21, maybe even 30 that haven't got the first deal yet. And they're trying to understand how people like you have been able to do it. Obviously, I think a very important part was that you actually had a mentor. I think there's some people in the real estate wholesaling business said, hey, I just did this all by myself. I thought about real estate and I just came out of nowhere and realized wholesaling. What's the importance of actually having a mentor in the beginning, kind of just to show you the ropes?
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple of mentors. They were great guys. They played a really big role in my life at the time, and I still have mentors to this day. My mentors have just changed and they've evolved as they should. And so, but look, I mean, at the end of the day, there are certain areas in a person's life. I think you can have a mentor, and what it'll do is it'll shortcut it. All really a mentor will do for you is you can condense time. So a lot of people, they have to go through things to learn lessons, right? It's how human beings learn. You can't, when you're a little kid, you touch the stove and it's hot, right? Your parents told you not to touch it, but you just had to touch. And you're like, and you knew from there on out that the stove is hot and you don't touch the stove, right? And so, things like that, it's hard to have a mentor, right? Because, like a relationship, right? I for the life of me, I can't understand how there's a relationship coach. Now I understand a relationship counselor, but a relationship coach, it's difficult for me to understand and wrap my brain around that, because if you're not in a bad relationship, you're never going to learn. And, but in business, I think it's a little bit different, right? I think in business, you can have a mentor that, has been through different things, and they can help you shorten the path to your success, whether that be, marketing, negotiations, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter the industry. It can be any industry, and so, yeah, a couple of really good mentors, and that, they definitely showed me the ropes. They showed me how to be a phenomenal negotiator. They showed me how to talk to people with confidence and really, get my message across, and how to be a chameleon and talk to different people and understand, the different personality types that there are, and, a lot of different things.
Yeah. And so you starting out, you actually didn't, from what I've heard or seen, that you didn't start out, you're like, I started week 2, got a $50,000 contract. It took you a while to get your first deal. Can you break down from the beginning, because it's the first $50,000 in wholesaling is always the hardest. And then after that, you're supposed to scale and scale up. Like from your first month all the way to your first deal, can you break all that down?
It was rough, man. It was a weird time in my life. I was depressed. I was anxious. I felt like I should be doing more. I wasn't doing more. It was a very, very weird time in my life when I got into that first year of wholesaling, I would say. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't have in my opinion at the time, I didn't have anything figured out. And I beat myself up, man. I just beat the hell out of myself. I still beat myself up to this day. I think in my opinion, I haven't achieved anything, but, it took me 9 months to get a deal. And during those 9 months, I tried everything. I mean, I did direct mail. That didn't work. I blew probably $6,000 or $7,000 in direct mail. I would cold call. I did virtual. I tried virtual. I'm like, maybe it's the market, maybe it's Arizona, right? I tried virtual wholesaling. That didn't work, and it took me a long time, man. I finally got a deal. And after that deal, it really started to click, but it was a grind.
Yeah. You're in a crazy market. I mean, I've had probably every single killer in Arizona in the wholesaling space, like on this podcast. I mean, I've had, you got the Carlos Reyeses, and then I got like the crazy other guys. Like I got creative dudes. Like it's insane. Yeah. Like it is literally insane in Arizona. And I mean, another question I got here is like, I've asked all these people, there's so much abundance in Arizona in your market, but it's also a tough one. Like now in your market, like how do you make yourself different? Because there's just so many killers everywhere.
Yeah, we are different, I think. I love and respect everybody in our market. There's a lot of big players here. You have, Sean Terry and Justin Colby, and like you said, Carlos and Sal and Alex Saenz and, Cody Sperber, and you've got Cody Barton, and you've got Pace, and you've got Jamil, and you have Josiah, and you have Hunter, and you have Keegley, and you have me, and you have, you just go on and on and on and on and on. And I have a relationship with everybody. All my relationships look and feel a little bit different, but I'd like to say that I'm on decent terms with everybody, and try not to ever burn a bridge. So that being said, I think there is room to go around, and so Phoenix metropolitan areas, I don't know, I think it's like 6 or 7 million people. So there's a lot of people here. But look, at the end of the day, you just got to be competitive, man. You got to fight for the kill. And I think that is what separates people. in Arizona, if you're not a total beast, you're not going to succeed. I mean, it's just not going to happen. There's too much competition here, and the competition's pretty good at what they do. I'm not going to lie. Right. And so you just got to be really, really good. You got to spend money. You got to have a phenomenal team. I mean, my team alone, right? I wouldn't be able to do anything without my team. I mean, I'm not the guy anymore, right? Don't get me wrong. I can get on the phone and I can close the deal probably better than anybody on my team. And I would tell them that to their face, and they know that. But that being said, I mean, they're dang good. I mean, they're right there. They're on my tail, and it keeps me, having to get better and better and better every day because how good they are, right? And so, when you build a phenomenal team and you have the right marketing in place and you solve a problem, right? The other thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is, hey, we're solving a problem. The problem is the seller needs to sell. Okay, well, how can we do that, right? There's multiple different ways the seller can sell a property, a piece of real estate, right? At the end of the day, they can get a cash offer, they can get a creative offer, they can list with a real estate agent, they can do a number of different things, and we do all of them. So we'll offer cash, we'll do creative financing, and we can list their property, right? And so, for us, when we go into a seller consultation or we're talking to a seller, really the pitch is simple. The pitch is we're a one-stop shop, and no matter what, we're going to make this a win-win transaction.
Definitely. Have you, I've seen you talk, you have a huge audience. So obviously you talking about creative finance going to confuse a lot of new people out. And I like to talk about it. Like I had Pace on, he talked all about creative financing, stuff like that. But do you do a lot of creative financing in your business?
We don't do it as much as like Pace and them, not at all. Yeah. They're from what I can tell, that's their primary focus. Our primary focus is wholesaling, fix and flipping, and now we're getting heavily into buy and hold, right? And actually building wealth. I've seen a lot of wholesalers throughout my time in the industry that, in my opinion, haven't built any wealth. They've made a lot of money. Okay, they've made a lot of money. They've made millions and millions of dollars. But when the market corrects and the market changes, they're strapped for cash, and I don't like that. I don't like the idea of working as hard as I work to not build any actual sustainable long-term generational wealth. And so, look, I like creative financing. I think it's great. And I think if we can land a good deal and get a subject to, the mortgage or whatever, then, or even a seller finance deal where I don't have to go to the bank and actually apply for a loan to obtain the property, then I think that, it could be a great deal. And we do those. But it is not our primary focus. My primary focus is really just old school almost. We cash flow with wholesaling is cash flow. And then we take that cash and invest it into things, into assets, into other businesses. Even I own other businesses, and my goal is to build wealth. I want to be worth, hundreds of millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm. I mean, you got a crazy amount of businesses. What you got your huge Zaback group. You got the wholesaling. You got ATMs. You got a podcast, YouTube. Like I'm probably missing a bunch of them, but you know them better than me. Yeah. I mean, you have all these businesses going around. I mean, what's consuming most of your time, and how are you just going around all this? Because it's overwhelming from an outside perspective.
Sure. Well, here's the way I look at it. Everything we do is real estate and marketing. Right. A lot of people look at everything and they say, oh, you do all this and all that. And I say, look, at the end of the day, I'm a marketing guy, and the vehicle is real estate. So ATM business is real estate, right? I own the real estate. I control the paperwork. The only difference is instead of a tenant, it gives you a dollar bill, and so at the end of the day, that's real estate to me. Marketing, okay, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, the various YouTube channels that we're trying to build. Stuff like that. It's all just marketing at the end of the day. Same thing with wholesaling or the Zaback group. It's all marketing, right? It's all about how many people can I reach, how wide of an audience, and can I get them to do business with me? And so we keep it pretty simple in that regard. We're not out. I don't own any restaurants. I don't own a gym. I don't know. I'm not doing anything totally outside of my area of expertise. I really do real estate and marketing. But at the end of the day, again, it goes back to the team, right? I mean, I'm a nobody without my team. We have a 4,000 square foot office in Scottsdale, Arizona. And, we have a fabulous, amazing team of people that show up every single day, and they work very, very hard. And that truly is how I'm able to do what I'm able to do. So I would say my primary focus, probably Where I shouldn't even say that. Where the majority of my energy goes is probably right now social media and really getting social media off the ground. I don't believe that I've achieved anything on social media, to be honest with you. I think that where I'm at on social media is nothing. And I think that I can 100x. I don't even want to 10x. I think I can 100x, where we're at in a matter of 12 or 18 months.
Definitely. I mean, your social media is insane. Like I mean, at this time, you're over 250 odd some thousand on Instagram. I mean, you're about to hit 30,000 on YouTube. It's insane. I mean, I'm celebrating 2,000. It's been like a year and a half, and it's growing and growing. It's a constant grind, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, you're definitely a big real estate guy. I mean, you're into the brokerage. You got a crazy team. Like, you got the listing here, but I mean, a pretty interesting question I have for you is, there's definitely a feeling once you get a big fat deal. I mean, what is more exciting to you? Selling a $1.6 million listing and making $50K, or doing a $50,000 wholesale? What's more exciting for you?
That's a tough one, man. I really like both of them. We've done a lot of both of them. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just love I love real estate, right? I love helping people, and I think, making the money on, is just a byproduct. I think it's a byproduct of building a team. It's a byproduct of working hard. It's a byproduct of helping people. And you ultimately end up getting to live a cool life, in the process of all that. So, that's kind of what drives me. But in terms of looking at it and having like a favorite, it's really tough because, I don't think I have a favorite. I'm addicted to the grind. I'm addicted to the hustle. I'm addicted to the hunt more than anything. Right. So when I get a deal, it's over with. And so for me, getting a check is a reality check of the income just stopped, right? And now I've got to go do it again. And so for me, when I close the deal, it's almost like I'm almost kind of sad. I'm like, man, I got to go hunt again. I got to lay back down in the forest and really get my sight set on the prey and on the target, and I got to really dial that back in because sometimes you'll spend a month or 2 or 3, working a deal, right? And every day you're working it, and you're negotiating, you're working the deal, and you're trying to hold it all together, keep everybody happy. And then all of a sudden it's just over with, Yeah. And the money doesn't change anything once you have a little bit of money. So it's like, another 50 grand, at this point doesn't mean a whole lot. Because I'm building, right now I'm just getting cash heavy so that I can buy more assets, more things that'll produce income, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the generational wealth, actually building it into things. It's very important. Something I preach here with all the people. Like, when I make $100,000 on a wholesale in like a month, I'm not blowing that. I'm reinvesting, or I'm buying more assets just to help me out here. I think a very important part you talked about is drive. And a lot of things, I interview so many people. Like you talked about, you had Justin Colvin on your podcast. Like, he's a very motivational guy. You ask him what motivates him now. He's got a wife, things like that. I mean, when you started out, there's not many kids that start at 17, 18 into real estate. It's a tough one. A lot of people, their drives are their kids, their wives, their family. Like, what drove you? Because you had no kids or a wife or anything back then. Like, what was your drive when it's hard to have them?
Yeah. I mean, number one, I've always wanted to hook my grandparents up. I've always wanted to retire them. I've always wanted to do, cool things for them. So I'd say, that's number one. But the second one that not a lot of people talk about is, and I think they're afraid to talk about it, is I just wanted to get rich. In the beginning, I wanted to get rich. I wanted to make money, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually. I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about that. But I think in the beginning, people talk about their why, I think, a lot of times because they think they have to have one. So, they make one up, but the reality of it is, I think the why sometimes comes after the money. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times, and not always, right? I'm not saying always, because there are people out there that like chase their passion, and it just so happens that their passion turns into, them making a lot of money. But look, not a lot of people are initially passionate about sales and real estate, right? It's something that you become. It's like you have to. It's like an acquired taste, right? It's like a nice bottle of whiskey. or a nice bottle of scotch. I'm a scotch drinker now. I like drinking a glass of scotch and smoking a good cigar, but I didn't always like scotch. There was a day and a time I drank scotch and I thought it was the worst thing in the world. I'm like, how the hell do people drink this? Right. So for me, I acquired that taste because I wanted to drink. I kind of liked the idea of it, right? I'm like, man, these older guys will drink a glass of whiskey, they'll smoke a cigar, and I wanted to be like that. So I kept drinking it, and then eventually I ended up liking it, right? And so, for me with real estate, I wanted to get rich, I wanted to make a lot of money, and I wanted to have nice things in life. And don't get me wrong, I wanted to help people, but I knew that I couldn't help people until I got rich. And so, for me, I just wanted to make money, man. And I got, real estate happened to be the vehicle initially. And it was an acquired taste. I didn't look at real estate initially and say, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread. That's not what happened, right? What happened was, I saw that 9 out of every 10 millionaire and billionaire self-made in the United States of America did so through real estate. And I said, well, shit, I may as well try it out, right?
Definitely. I mean, real estate has been a game changer for me. If I had to bring someone off the street and make them 6 figures, the only thing I would think of is real estate investing. I mean, just your journey has been so crazy, and you've honestly, you're just in the beginning, just like me. I mean, it's honestly been what, 5-6 years you've been in it, just the beginning. I mean, can you reflect back? I mean, what would you say your highest highs have been and your lowest lows have been in this whole journey for you?
Yeah, really good question. Look, man, I talked about it a little while ago. I don't think a lot of people are talking about this either, but success and entrepreneurship, people look at people like me, maybe, I guess, that, I don't think I've done anything, but I look at other people, whatever. And a lot of times you think that these people have it all figured out. And I can tell you one thing for sure. I've met a lot of really cool people in my life. I mean, I've been very blessed. I've been around the right people. And nobody's got it figured out. Nobody, not like, and excuse my French, by the way, but not a dang person has it figured out. And so, that's tough at times, because as a true entrepreneur, you will be your worst critic. And for me, when it's really tough for me to celebrate, my victories, because anytime I have a victory, it doesn't feel like a victory to me, because and I interviewed a really cool guy on my podcast the other day, and he was talking about, look, the reality of it is for human beings, they base their happiness off of, especially men do this even more in entrepreneurs, but it's like, wherever you're at compared to wherever you think you should be at that time in your life, and then the velocity at which you're getting there. So you have to put a little thought into that. But, basically, everybody in their mind has this they have this ideal life in which they think they should already be living, or they should be living at a particular time. And at that time, if the velocity at which they're getting there is not fast enough, that can cause a lot of problems. It can cause depression, anxiety, stress. And these aren't things that a lot of people talk about. And, so for me, the problem is that I always think that I should be way ahead of where I'm at, no matter what. And I always thought at every level, I think that'll change at the next level. I've told myself this for 10 years now. I say, when I make $100,000, I'll be happy. And it didn't make me happy. When I make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, I said, well, look, if I could just buy a Lamborghini, if I could just live in a penthouse, if I could just, it's never been the case, man. I'll be honest with you. I've driven down the road in a Lamborghini, and I've been unhappy. I've been unhappy. I've lived in a 2-story penthouse and been unhappy. I've partied 7 days a week, spent $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 at the club, unhappy. I bought in a Hublot, unhappy. And so, for me, I think it's more about finding the actual balance of, like, how do you not get too high in the highs and not too low in the lows? Because I've had a lot of them, man. I think for me, some of my highs and lows happened like almost simultaneously, right? Which is why it's such a difficult question to answer, because, there's been those moments where I should have been the happiest person in the world and I wasn't. And then there's been moments where I should have, not been happy at all, and I was jacked out of my mind, and it's a really interesting thing when you look at it. And so, great question, tough question to answer all at the same time. But, I've had a lot of things in my life for my age, I would like to think, and none of it's made me happy. I've done things for other people, and it's made me happy every single time. So, I've been in Nicaragua a couple times, on mission trips and stuff like that. self-funded, paid for everything and paid for the house. I went down there and actually built, houses for these people that are less fortunate. And, and I've funded that, and I've gone with other incredible individuals, very, very wealthy people, worth, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And those are the moments where I've been happy, where I'm in a t-shirt and boots on the ground in Levi's jeans, digging in 80 or 90% humidity, digging the footing for this person's house in Managua, Tipitapa, Nicaragua, and that for me, it has always brought me happiness. So now, I would say 80% of the time I show up to my office in a t-shirt and jeans. I've got a collection of suits I don't wear because, for me now, what I've come to realize is that it's not about stuff. I sold everything. I moved out of the penthouse. I sold at an Audi R8, a Lamborghini, Range Rover, Mercedes-Benz, you name it. And I sold it all. I bought a Tesla Model 3. Elon Musk calls it the minimalist car, right? And, look, I don't go to the gas station. I charge my car at night. I moved into a little condo townhouse. I'm more cash heavy right now than I've ever been in my entire life. And I also don't spend any money on myself. So it's a very interesting thing when you look at it, right? And I think, I talked about this with other people, but, look, and I don't know, right? I'm 25 years old. I'll probably look back at this interview in a decade and be like, man, I was a complete idiot. But, the bottom line is, I think that people that are, that don't have a lot of money want the world to think they have a lot of money. And people that truly have a lot of money, like FU money to have a lot of money, actually want the world to think they don't have any. So, because it's kind of a long story, but anyway, so, I think I hope that was I know it was a long answer to your question, but, it isn't about the money, man. It's way more about finding yourself and figuring out, what makes you happy and doing that. And in doing so, anybody watching, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to make a lot of errors. There's going to be a lot of things you look back on. And if you're honest with yourself and other people around you, you're going to look at it and say, man, I shouldn't have done that. But you never want to go and change that, because those mistakes will make you who you are. And you got to go through that in life. You can't have a mentor teach you everything, right? You can't. Mentors are great, right? And you want to get a mentor, but you got to remember that a lot of things in life, a mentor is not going to be able to teach you.
No, definitely. I mean, I was a lot right there, but the only thing that reminds me of is a quote from Tony Robbins. I'm going to butcher it, but he says, you will underestimate what you can do in a year, but you will overestimate what you think you can do in 5, 10, 15 years. And I think that's so true here. I mean, that whole journey, I think do you think in your life now, you're starting to appreciate the journey you're on now versus, because you can't really appreciate the struggles in the beginning, but now you're kind of self-conscious of it. I mean, have you been sitting back and thinking of where you've been?
Yeah, for sure. All the time. Look, man, I have more struggle today than I've ever had in my life. Just look at the paradox here, if you wouldn't mind. I struggle more. I have more problems. I face more problems than I've ever faced. I'm also more cash heavy in terms of a net worth than I've ever been. Liquid. I also, at the same time, I don't buy anything for myself ever, ever. And it's just all kind of weird when you look at it, right? And so, for me right now, I deal with problems every day, just like anybody, right? There's stuff goes wrong every day, but it's different, man. It's different now. Now I don't really look at things as problems anymore. I look at them as, and I used to not be able to do this until, like you said, looking backwards, right? In retrospect, but now I'm able to do it looking forward. I'm able to say, hey, wait a minute. This is preparing me for blank. This is supposed to prepare me for this. This is supposed to do, serve me in this area of my life. And I'm able to do that in real time now. So, typically now, anything, man. You could serve me with a lawsuit, and within 10 minutes, I'm able to figure out why I'm getting sued and what that is supposed to prepare me for. And I never used to be able to do that. So I definitely enjoy the journey now. I'm not perfect, not even close. I still struggle, with different things. And I'm just figuring it out one day at a time.
Definitely. To go back onto your legacy here. I mean, obviously you're getting more and more businesses here. I think a lot of guys can relate to you. Would you say you're very risk oriented versus like, when you get a new venture, you're like, let's do it, but like that entrepreneurial like tick?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I probably have the highest risk tolerance of all my friends. I'm the kind of guy that, and my business partners, I'm the true visionary. I think other people would tell you that too. I can think 1,000 miles ahead of me and I can live in the future. I mean, truly and honestly, to the point of actual fault. I mean, living in the future, sometimes, it takes away from the present, right? So you got to be really careful, but here's the catch-22 with a real entrepreneur, right? And again, another guy I think was talking about this. I was talking to the other day, but an entrepreneur, in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to be an optimist. In order to be an optimist, you have to always assume that the future is better than the present. And you also have to be able to visualize that exact future at any given time so that you can take the appropriate steps in the present to make that future reality. Problem with that is you end up living in the future, not enjoying the present. And the other problem with that is the moment the future becomes the present, there's immediately a new future that you're looking at. So the future is always a goal that's moving, changing, and evolving that you're always chasing and never catching up to. And there's no level that won't be true, although some people think that there will be. The more life that you live out, the more you realize that what I'm saying is completely accurate. So it's a struggle, man. It's a grind. And you really have to be conscious of these different things as an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? And, but yeah, man, I mean, my risk tolerance is really high. I'm the kind of guy that I'm like, spend $100,000, let's roll, let's rock and roll right now, and a lot of times, I lose. A lot of times I make a mistake. A lot of times I move too quickly, but I will say that I end up winning just a little bit more than I lose. And that is what makes up my success.
Wow. And so how do you stop yourself from having this, like, this entrepreneurship ADHD where like you think of 30 more businesses, you got Amazon FBA, you got Shopify here. Like what's stopping you? Cause I mean, in the future, you get more and more money. Like, how do you hone yourself down and say, hey, this Amazon thing, I'm not an expert. I ain't going to do this, but you got like all these business ideas. Like, how do you filter those out? Cause I bet a million people like pitch new things every day.
Yeah. Well, all I really do right now is I put my team first. So I just think, okay, can my team function in this particular business without me, right? And if the answer is no, then I can't leave yet, because what I'm really doing then is I'm essentially looking at my team dead in the eye and I'm saying, hey, you're not important to me. My success is more important. I'm going to go do this. And I'm not going to allow myself to do that. So for me, I just look at my team and I say, okay, are you guys able to function? If I were to step away for a month, right? If I were to step away and go work on a different project, would this continue to build momentum? Would it flatline? Would it plateau? Or would we continue to build momentum? And if the answer is no to that question, then it is not time yet for me to start a new venture. So although there's a million things that I want to do, and I think Tony Robbins owns like 75 different companies, and that day will come, right? I'm very excited for that day, but I've got to be very careful to do it one step at a time, and to do it very intentionally and very methodically. And then at the right time, I'll be able to do anything I set my mind to. And that's what I've done this far, and I've made a lot of mistakes. There's been a lot of businesses where looking back, I moved too quickly. I hired too quickly, all sorts of different things. But those mistakes are what has taught me, to slow down just a little bit, which I hate doing, by the way. It's not easy for me to slow down, but I have to force myself to do it. And the way I'm able to is to just think of other people. You got to get your mind off of yourself and onto other people. At the end of the day, without a team, you're nobody, right? Anybody that doesn't have a team, look, you can go fast alone. You can go far with people.
Yeah. I mean, there's just the future is bright for you, man. I mean, I'm gonna ask you a very tough question. It's tough because no one knows. I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I knew. Like this coronavirus, I had no idea. But I mean, where do you see yourself in the next 1, 5, and 10 years?
Yeah, this is a really tough question. Really, really good question. Look, in a year from now, I think we could probably be the #1 wholesalers in the state of Arizona, potentially the country. I really believe that.
Beat Keegley.
I believe I could beat Keegley. I like Keegley. I know all the guys over there very, very well. They're dear friends of mine. I've known them since way before Keegley was a thing. way before, years and years before Keegley was even an idea or a thought. And I know exactly how they did what they did, minus maybe a couple of ingredients that I think could be changed anyways. And so I think, a guy, look, I'm doing a third or a fourth of what Keegley's doing right now with a tenth of the people. So, it's just a matter of I got to slow roll it, right? I got to really massage it. And I got to get there. And it has nothing to do. I'm a competitive guy. I want to be the best. Other than that, I wish Keegley all the success in the world, just as I do anybody else. So I think I could be number one there. I think we could do at least 100 deals a month, but probably I think you could get to like 200 deals a month, countrywide. Another thing is I think you could do probably $500 million a year in traditional real estate sales in the state of Arizona without a lot of effort or energy. I think there's $75 billion worth of real estate sold in Arizona in 2019 or in Maricopa County. So, for me to say I want to do 500 million a year is a percent, right? I want to do 1% of the total, dollars sold. That's not impossible to achieve. It's basically what Ryan Serhant does in New York City, but in Maricopa County, right? I think it could be done. And then, so that's a year from now, right? I think in a year, I could get big enough on social media that you could probably almost have like your own HGTV/MDLA, like $1 Million Listing, that you could self-produce on the platform of YouTube. And you could make it just as good, if not better, than watching HGTV or $1 Million Listing on actual television. And I think you could actually have the producers of those shows reach out and want to do something on actual television. I think it'd actually be a tough call or a tough decision, because I think there could be more opportunity on a platform like YouTube long term. Oh, yeah. So I think that's very doable. I'm already working on that. I'm already working on, the content and things of that nature, so we're doing that. I mean, ATM business, we're scaling the ATM business like crazy right now. We probably have a couple hundred locations already, and, we've only been doing it for almost a year. So I think we could probably have 1,000 locations. And I also think that, we could wholesale. We could be the biggest ATM wholesaler in the country like that, So essentially we're taking the contracts and we're wholesaling them to people that just want to make passive income, they don't want to have to actually go out there and land the contract and do all the legwork, So I think we could do that within a year, just stuff like that. But then in terms of like 5 or 10 years, man, I mean, it's really tough. I think that, there'll be a lot of, I want to get into like the tangible product world at some point. You look at guys like Josh Snow and Snow Teeth Whitening and all this different stuff. I think with social media and where I know I could take social media when I really get the foundation set, I think, I could start a tangible product with the right packaging, the right branding, the right marketing. I think we could easily, have $100 million exit, right? I think we could take a company, get it to $100 million a year, and then have a 9 or 10 figure actual exit, So I think that could be done within like 5 years, and then within 10 years, man, I mean, gosh, I think I could own as many rental properties as Grant Cardone in 10 years. I mean, when you look at Grant Cardone, he was broke in 2008. I mean, he talks about it, right? So, it really, Grant Cardone, everything that you look at and see with him, he's achieved in 12 years. It wasn't like, I mean, sure, he had experience and wisdom and knowledge and all of that, don't get me wrong, but really he achieved everything in 12 years. And I mean, he owns a G5 Gulfstream plane, so, man, I think sky's the limit, keep dreaming, right? And I think helping people's obviously a byproduct of all of that. By the way, I don't want to just sound like, look, anytime you build a big company, a big team, a big anything, what are you doing? You're employing a lot of people. You're paying salaries. You're feeding families. You're paying the cleaner to clean the office. You're paying the painter to paint the walls. You're paying the SRP to cool the building, right? So that's a given, right? I think a lot of people miss a lot of that. And so you're always contributing to society automatically, right? You go buy a Lamborghini, look, at the end of the day, there's still people, there's manufacturers, there's art, there's engineers, there's all these different people that have got to assemble that car that I'm paying. I'm helping feed their families and stuff like that. So, anytime you go above and beyond as somebody that makes a lot of money and you donate to charity and you give back to your church and you do stuff like that, that's just icing on the cake. And obviously, anybody that's wealthy is good. For the most part, they're going to do stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And you're clearly on your way there. I mean, just from your journey from 5 years ago to now, I would not doubt you at all. Unfortunately, when you do become the number one wholesaler in America, it's just not going to be good enough for you. You're going to want to be the number one brokerage, things like that. I mean, there's no way of stopping you. It's really exciting, man. Last couple questions here. I mean, in your whole journey, I mean, it's only been 5 years. Like, it's going to be insane. But in your whole story here, you live in a crazy state. I live in Florida, which is, I'd say, the craziest state. Arizona's close second. I mean, what is your craziest real estate story?
Oh man, there's so many. I've had deals that took a year, wholesale deals that took a year to close, where like, you know, we're trying to like, we got squatter. I had a deal one time where there was probably like 15 or 20 squatters sleeping in the property, you know, and, you know, you're like knocking on the door, you know, trying to get them to leave, like trying to like pay them. And, you know, I've had deals where I've had to take like the seller and drive them to the DMV to get a driver's license. So that way they could sign closing docs, you know, and they didn't have a car. They had no way to get to the DMV. They had no money. They couldn't afford to get their driver's license redone, you know, so I've taken sellers to and I'm talking, you know, when you're talking about a seller like that, you're talking about a guy or a girl it's a little bit of a sketchy situation to put somebody like that. And I'm not, you know, talking badly about or anything like that, but anytime, you know, somebody doesn't have the money or a vehicle or anything, a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of the times it's drug related, you know, and there's other, you know, variables involved. So to put somebody like that in your car and wine and dine them a little bit, you know, you can get yourself in some interesting situations. But yeah, a lot of crazy stuff, man. You know, squatters and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, like I said, taking people to the DMV, you know, a year to close escrow, you know, second liens and back taxes and you know, probate, you know, going to multiple family members and having to hunt people down and you know, get everybody on the same page, you know, buying people like cars to close the deal. I bought a guy an RV one time to close the deal. It was like an old RV, you know, it wasn't anything crazy, but you know, he had nowhere to go and he wanted to, you know, travel abroad and drive across America. So we went to an auction and bought him an RV, you know, and just crazy stuff, man. You got to do whatever you got to do. You know, when you have a good deal and you know that there's going to be good profit on the other end of it, and you're going to be able to feed your team and your family and everybody that worked really hard to get the deal to where it is in the pipeline, you know, you got to do whatever you got to do to be able to finish that transaction and make sure that that deal closes so that everybody, you know, you have a fiduciary responsibility when you're a business owner to your team, right? It's not actually typically to the seller. Otherwise, you would just represent them as a real estate agent. When you're just an investor, your fiduciary responsibility is to your team and to the people that work for you to make sure you profit the most amount of money. Obviously, still always making it a win-win for the seller, but at the same time, you know, to your team, right? And to make sure that they get paid and they can afford to put food on the table. Yeah.
Wow. I've dealt with more needles and squatters in my day that I care to talk about. But yeah, man, those are crazy, man. I think something that's pretty important to talk about here is I think the one thing that you have an advantage with is with successful wholesalers. They're kind of like lions. When they're really hungry, they become crazy good, and then they get full, and then they kind of slow down. I think you have not been full as a lion, or like you're just keep going and going and going, and it's insane here, man. I mean, we just hit 2,000 subscribers. I appreciate everyone coming on here. I'm going to end this out with the same question I ask every single guest. So I started 17 years old with $300 in my bank account in wholesaling. I mean, let's say we take everything away from you. You got no money. You got $300 now. You're back in your grandparents' garage at your age. What would you do to become the next Austin Zaback with no money?
Man, I would probably network with as many people as I could network with. You know, they say your network is, or your net worth is your net worth, right? And, you know, a lot of how I am where I am today is by knowing the right people and working really, really hard, being at the right place at the right time with the right person, and then doing whatever it took to take action on the opportunity at hand. So, you know, I don't think it costs a lot of money to be successful, but I think, you know, if you take everything away and you don't know anybody, you got to go meet people. You got to get out there and you got to meet people. Look, if you go out there and you meet people and you work hard, right, you do whatever you can do for them. I mean, anything and everything. You know, when I was growing up, always to this very day, there's nothing I won't do. I'm not too good for anything. I'll sweep the floors. I'll do anything, right? And I think if you do that for the right person, you will get handed opportunity. doors will get open for you that you never thought in a million years would be available to you. Things that are outside of where you ever even imagined you'd end up, just because you got around the right people and you proved yourself. And it doesn't cost any money to do that.
Definitely. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. The title of the next one we're going to do next year is How You Became the #1 Wholesaler in Arizona. I'm keeping you to it. I'm excited to have that one interview next year, but I really appreciate you coming on, man. If someone wants to get a hold of you, obviously you have your A&A podcast. I think you had Ricky, you had Ricky on there, like real popular people. Like you're getting like these killers on here. It's amazing. Follow you. You're basically at Austin Zaback. Your stuff's below, man. I really appreciate. Do you have any parting thoughts to the guests before we sign off?
That's it, man. Just work hard, put your head down, and ignore the naysayers. Ignore anybody that doubts you. Just look at the people that have what you want. What do they do? How do they act? What do they wear? What do they, and if you just keep it simple and work hard day in, day out consistently, you can achieve anything you want in life.
Wow. Thank you so much, Austin. I really appreciate you guys. 2,000. I can't wait till we hit even more and more and more. Thank you guys so much. See you guys next week.